My friend, there comes a time in every person's life when they are laughed at, not because they are weak, but because they dared to dream. They mocked you not because you were foolish, but because they saw in you the reflection of something they were too afraid to become, brave, relentless, and destined for something greater. They whispered behind your back, they doubted your vision, and they smiled at your setbacks. They thought the delay was your defeat, but what they forgot, what they never understood, is that delay is not denial. You see, the universe operates on laws far deeper than their shallow insults. They mocked you. They rolled their eyes when you spoke your dream. They laughed behind your back, whispered in corners, and smiled politely to your face while secretly hoping you'd fail. They questioned your ambition, your vision, your fire. They called you unrealistic, delusional, maybe even arrogant for daring to believe that something greater was possible for you. But what they didn't understand, what they still don't, is that mockery isn't a sign of failure. It's a signal that you're walking a path they can't comprehend. A signal that you're moving beyond the limits they've accepted for themselves. People don't mock what's familiar. They don't ridicule the average or the expected. No one sneers at someone playing it safe. But the moment you break from the crowd, the moment you start speaking with boldness, dreaming with clarity, acting with confidence, that's when the mocking begins. Because your courage confronts their complacency. Your vision highlights their hesitation. Your determination makes their excuses harder to swallow. And so they left not because you're foolish, but because your life reminds them of what they could be doing. If only they had your faith. But let me tell you something powerful. God and karma are watching. Every tear you cried when no one saw, every setback you faced when they cheered, every time you got up again when quitting would have been easier. It's all seen. None of it is wasted. Nothing is unnoticed. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to argue your worth. You don't need to respond to their mockery with anger or revenge. The path you're on is one of discipline, resilience, and divine order. And while they're busy watching you stumble, God is preparing a table before you. Karma is setting the scale. You see, mockery is often projection. People mock what they secretly admire. They call you a too much of because deep down they feel too little. They say, who do you think you are? Because they've never dared to answer that question for themselves. But you chose to believe in something unseen. You chose to act even when the evidence wasn't there. You spoke faith while they spoke fear. And that makes you dangerous to their comfort zone. That makes you a mirror reflecting everything they've silenced within themselves.
Let them lie.
Let them talk. Let them think they figured you out.
They mocked you. They thought they got away with it. They assumed their actions would vanish into the silence of your restraint. They believed the betrayal, the lies, the ridicule, and the attempts to sabotage your journey would remain buried, unnoticed, and unanswered. But what they failed to realize is that divine justice never sleeps. It never forgets. It never misses a single detail. Every tear you shed in secret, every time you bit your tongue and took the high road, every injustice you absorbed to protect your peace was recorded. Not by man, but by something far greater. God and karma were watching. You see, the universe is governed by spiritual law, and no action goes without consequence. You may not see it right away. It may look like they're winning. It may appear that their gossip damaged your reputation, their schemes slowed your progress, or their laughter crushed your spirit. But appearances lie. God sees the heart. Karma feels the intention. While they mocked you, heaven was measuring your patience, measuring your endurance, measuring your ability to stay true when everything in you wanted to retaliate. And that kind of restraint, that kind of faith, never goes unrewarded. There is something sacred about being wronged and staying silent. It speaks to a strength the world cannot measure. Because when you allow God and karma to be your vindicators, you rise in power and dignity, not pettiness and revenge. And though it seems like nothing is happening, there's a process unfolding behind the scenes. A divine accounting system is at work, and when the time is right, the balance will be made perfect. Those who ridiculed you will face the echo of their own energy. Those who tried to delay your destiny will be delayed in theirs. Not by your hand, but by the law that governs all things. Every act of faith you made in the dark is coming to light. Every time you move forward despite the pain, despite the doubt, despite the voices trying to tear you down, those moments were not wasted. They were seeds, and those seeds are breaking the ground now. They are pushing toward the surface. What they thought was your ending was just your planting. You were being buried, yes, but for growth, not for death. And soon the fruit will show. It's easy to believe that the loudest voice wins, but not in the realm of divine justice. In that realm, truth is louder than noise. Integrity outlives deception. Faith defeats manipulation. The universe doesn't move on your enemy's timeline. It moves on divine time. And when it moves with precision. Every lie spoken against you is now a stepping stone beneath you. Every delay you suffered is now setting the stage for a greater arrival. Every ounce of pain they caused is being converted into power. God is not blind. Karma is not forgetful. You are not abandoned in the middle of the storm. You are being watched. Every choice, every heartbreak, every sacrifice. When you chose to walk away from the drama instead of fighting back, you weren't being weak. You were being wise. You weren't just taking the high road. You were aligning yourself with something greater than human approval. And now, that alignment is beginning to bear fruit. Those who mocked you didn't realize they were mocking someone covered. They mistook your silence for insignificance. But you were being kept, hidden, protected, refined. And when the doors open, when the shift happens, when the blessing falls, there will be no question who stood by you, who carried you, and who orchestrated the comeback they never saw coming. You are not just rising. You are being elevated by a force that corrects every wrong and multiplies every good. Divine justice is not petty. It is perfect. It does not move in haste. It moves in wisdom. And when it arrives, it rewrites everything. Your name will be restored. Your character will shine. Your enemies will be silenced, not by your hand, but by the undeniable evidence of favor on your life. They mocked you, but God and karma were watching, and they mocked you. They misunderstood your quietness for weakness, your stillness for confusion, your humility for fear. They assumed that because you didn't fight back with words, you had no fire left. They didn't know that while they were making noise, you were making progress. While they were drawing attention to your delays, you were drawing strength from your source. You weren't defeated. You were focused. You weren't backing down. You were building. Because silence and perseverance are not signs of surrender. They are the secret weapons of the destined. In a world obsessed with validation, it takes power to stay silent. When people throw dirt on your name, when they twist your intentions, when they laugh at your efforts, the human instinct is to react, to prove them wrong with speeches, to shout back with explanations, to beg them to see your heart. But your dream does not need a defense. It needs your discipline. God and karma are not moved by noise. They are activated by consistency, by patience, by quiet obedience to purpose. You don't have to announce your every move. You don't have to broadcast your battles. In fact, some of your greatest victories will come in the shadows, because there is power in building in silence. There is power in letting your work speak for you. Let them doubt you. Let them think you've disappeared. Let them believe you gave up, because while their words fade into echoes, your results will rise like thunder. And when they finally see the fruit, there will be no need for you to say a word. Perseverance is not glamorous. It's the quiet grind when no one claps for you. It's getting up after the 10th failure. It's believing in the vision when the evidence says otherwise. It's choosing to keep walking when your legs are tired, your heart is heavy, and your path is lonely. But that's where the real transformation happens, not in the applause, but in the process. And the ones who mocked you, they never stayed long enough in the process to understand its value. They traded depth for distraction. You chose to endure, And that's why you're dangerous. Because no matter how loud they got, they couldn't break your spirit. You didn't retaliate. You didn't stoop to their level. You just kept moving, kept praying, kept planning, kept working. Every step you took in silence became a stone laid on the road to your breakthrough. Every time you withheld a response, you made room for a greater reward. And that's why divine justice is tilting in your favor. Because you chose perseverance over pride. Let them talk. Let them guess. Let them assume. You're not here to satisfy their curiosity. You're here to fulfill your calling. And every time you stayed quiet, you didn't shrink. You sharpened. You didn't cower. You climbed. They may have heard nothing from you, but heaven heard everything. Every cry, every whisper, every hope you buried in faith. And karma kept the receipts. Every bit of energy they sent your way. Every mocking laugh. Every attempt to break your momentum is circling back. Not out of vengeance, but alignment. The law of return never fails. So don't be afraid of being overlooked. Don't be afraid of walking in silence. Some of the most explosive breakthroughs come after the quietest seasons. Because silence is not empty. It's full of intention. It's where your character forms. It's where your spirit deepens. It's where God molds you into someone who can handle what's coming. And when the time is right, when the stage is set, when the doors open, your perseverance will roar louder than any argument you could have made. They mocked you, but they didn't know that silence was your strategy. They didn't know that perseverance was your power. They didn't know that while they were loud, you were listening to the voice within, to the timing of God, to the rhythm of destiny. And now, what they laughed at is rising. What they ignored is unfolding. What they tried to bury is blossoming. Not with noise, but with undenial. They mocked you. They laughed at your struggle, pointed at your delays, and whispered that maybe you weren't as chosen as you claimed to be. They saw you working, praying, trying, falling and rising again, and still they mocked. Not because you weren't making progress, but because your progress didn't match their expectations. They assumed your delays meant denial. They thought your season of waiting was evidence that your dream had died. But what they didn't know, what they failed to understand, is that your breakthrough was never based on their timeline. Your breakthrough was always scheduled for the right time, not on demand, not when they watched, but when heaven said, now. Delays are not the end. They are the preparation. They are the refining. They are the stretching of your soul, the deepening of your character, the strengthening of your faith. Every minute you spent wondering when, every moment you felt stuck, every hour you wanted to quit but didn't, those were all pieces of the process. God never promised immediate success. He promised divine timing, and divine timing is not concerned with appearances. It doesn't rush because of pressure. It arrives with purpose. They laughed because you didn't have results yet. Because they couldn't see the fruit, they dismissed the seed. They judged the soil and not the harvest to come. But what grows in silence often shocks those who doubted it. While they were speaking against you, heaven was working for you. While they were mocking the absence of movement, God was perfecting the foundation. And karma was keeping the record. Not to punish, but to balance. To ensure that what you've endured in faith returns to you in favor. You kept moving forward even when nothing made sense. You didn't cheat the process. You didn't manipulate outcomes. You stayed true. You stayed focused. You kept showing up with integrity, even when shortcuts looked tempting and applause looked comforting. You were building something real, not for the moment, but for the mission. That's why the delay was necessary. That's why the wait felt so long, because great things are never rushed. And what's being prepared for you requires a foundation that mockery can't shake and jealousy can't break. The rise is inevitable, not because you're perfect, but because you're planted. Not because they approved, but because God assigned it. You weren't overlooked. You were being positioned. Your dream didn't die. it was being developed. The silence wasn't punishment. It was protection. Because had you risen when they wanted, you would have risen too soon. You would have been exposed before you were ready. But God loved you too much to let that happen. So he let them mock while he made you stronger. He let them watch while he made you wiser. He let them talk while he made you unshakable. Now the shift is near. You feel it. Not because someone announced it, but because your spirit recognizes the weight of preparation turning into manifestation. The door is opening, not because you forced it, but because it's time. And when it opens, you won't need to explain the wait. The results will do that for you. The favor will speak louder than their laughter. The blessing will silence every accusation. And they will know, not because you told them, but because it's undeniable. They mocked what they didn't understand. They doubted what they couldn't see. But that's not your concern. Your assignment is not to convince people who were never meant to understand your vision. Your assignment is to keep moving forward with integrity, with focus, with unwavering faith. Because the rise was never a matter of if, it was only a matter of when. And when is coming, not rushed, not forced, but right on time. They mocked you, but they won't be able to ignore what's coming. Because your breakthrough is not a reaction to their disbelief. It's a fulfillment of divine design. God and karma were watching. They always were. And now, the moment they mock,